Oh my God.
World War III is brewing right before our eyes. On one side you have Russia, the nation with the largest nuclear arsenal on Earth, engaged in a relentless war against Ukraine, a country now heavily backed by the United States, the most powerful military force in modern history. Then you look to the Middle East, where the Israel-Hamas conflict has triggered rising tensions with Iran, another major player. The United States is being dragged deeper into that powder keg by the day. And now, looming over the Pacific, a different kind of war is unfolding, a cold strategic trade war with China, our largest economic adversary. These aren't isolated events, they're dominoes, stacked, trembling, and ready to fall. Unlike World War II, which barely touched US soil, this time we face a real possibility of war reaching our front yards. The difference? Today's weapons can fly across oceans. Chaos would no longer be something we just watch, it would be something we live. And with all that said, one question rises from the rubble. Can American dating culture survive the next world war? Because what we're currently calling dating culture in America isn't really about partnership anymore. It's not about survival, legacy, or the preservation of the species. It's become a performance, a marketplace, a distorted, hyper-commercialized practice full of curated images, transactional values, and self-obsessed ideologies. At the heart of it all, modern feminism. A movement that began with calls for equal opportunity has now mutated into something entirely different, something anti-human at its core. Because when a system begins to divide the species it belongs to, it's no longer advocating for progress, it's promoting collapse. Let's get scientific. From a biological perspective, men and women are wired to complement each other for one primary reason: species survival. Mating, bonding, reproducing, and cooperating. That's the very basis of how we built every civilization on this planet. When those bonds are severed by ideologies that glorify independence to the point of delusion, the inevitable result is extinction. Let's be clear. When women proudly say, "I don't need a man," what they're really saying, whether they realize it or not, is that they don't need the other half of humanity, that men are dispensable, replaceable, unnecessary. But here's the paradox. The only reason women can say that right now is because of American privilege, because of peace, because of abundance. But what happens when that collapses? What happens when foreign missiles fall, infrastructure breaks down, and life returns to something primitive, something physical, something real? In the aftermath of World War II, entire nations had to rebuild from ashes. And how did they do it? Not with Instagram captions or TED Talks. They did it because men led reconstruction, and women birthed the next generation. That wasn't oppression, that was survival. That was biology. But in modern America, we've built a fantasy world that acts as if we've somehow evolved past biology, past logic, past the very system that brought us into existence. Philosophically speaking, modern feminism fails because it ignores the fundamental truth of duality. Every force needs its counterpart, every action, a balance. And humanity, both physically and spiritually, was designed to be balanced through man and woman. But now, we are divided, deliberately, systematically. Psychologically, we've conditioned an entire generation of women to believe that needing a man is weakness, and an entire generation of men to believe that their worth is tied only to how useful they are to those women. And in a world where war is imminent, that model just cannot hold. A nation where men and women no longer see themselves as allies in survival is, honestly, a nation that will not survive. Because, missiles don't care about hashtags, famine doesn't care about followers, and chaos doesn't care about clout. The harsh truth is this: if World War III begins and America finds itself under siege, everything we believe about modern dating will shatter instantly. The fantasy will break, the ideologies will die, and all that will remain is reality. And in that reality, men will be forced to lead, women will be forced to follow. Not because of sexism, but because of circumstance. Because honestly, biology and survival will reassert themselves as the true rulers of life. The sad part? We could have learned that lesson peacefully, together, but instead we've built a culture where individualism is worshipped and interdependence is mocked. So the next time you hear someone say, "I don't need a man," just know, when history finally repeats itself and the world burns once more, that sentence will vanish from existence, not by censorship, but by circumstance.